what is consciousness? What is dreaming? And these things are very good questions, and they're very helpful questions. If you practice in your lucid dreams, there is a direct link to greater proficiency in waking life. I think that's one of the most helpful practices to do, especially at the beginning.
Athena Laz is a best-selling author, psychologist, and expert in the field of dreams, spirituality, intuition, and the nature of consciousness. Her best-selling books, The Alchemy of Your Dreams and The Deliberate Dreamer's Journal, have been translated into more than 12 languages worldwide. Athena, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on, Brad. I'm excited to speak to you.
Likewise. If there was one key message that you'd like people to leave this session and take away, what would it be?
I hope to leave people inspired to actually pay attention to their nighttime dreams so that they can see how much guidance is available to them. So just to experiment.
Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and who you are?
Sure. So I'm a dream teacher. I'm also an intuitive and a psychologist. I had a lot of dreams when I was younger, a lot of lucid dreams and a lot of sort of psychic experiences, and I didn't really know what they were, and I didn't understand them even though I was having them. And then I hit my 20s and I needed to pick a career path. I needed to do something, and I was very attracted to the field of psychology. So I became a licensed psychologist, and I worked in clinics and hospitals and in private practice for a while. And at the time, I actually mainly dealt with trauma patients. I didn't do a lot of dream work unless it naturally kind of came up in the conversation. But in my personal life, I was training in all sorts of sort of like alternative modalities, and my own dream life and my own sort of spiritual life was expanding. And then it hit a crux point where I just really felt called to leave that kind of traditional model and expand the work that I was doing. So I decided to go online, and I wanted to write a book. And that's what I did. So I wrote a book called The Alchemy of Your Dreams, which is really a book aimed at people who want to reconnect to their dream practices. It is for expert level dreamers, especially if they're wanting to learn about lucid dreaming and don't know about it. So we definitely recommend that to them.
This episode is brought to you by Start With Values. If you'd like to reduce stress and increase fulfillment in your work and life, then check out startwithvalues.com. There, you'll be able to download the Values app, which helps you to discover your core values and bring them to life through micro habits. There is a values course so that you can learn about the science and practice of core values, and you'll be able to pre-register for my forthcoming book called Start With Values. I hope that these tools will enable you to achieve more fulfillment and make more meaningful decisions on your journey of life. Now back to the episode.
And so through writing the book and having the book come out in the world, and I was lucky that it went out to a lot of different countries. I've worked with lots of people in helping them to understand their own dreams, but also their inner worlds and also the outer world, what I call non-physical or spirit in the book.
Fascinating. I always love talking to people who have experienced traditional perspectives on life, medicine, psychology, but who are also looking deeper than that, because there is so much more, I think, untapped potential and things that you can't necessarily study and produce a research report about. So I'm interested to find out, maybe we step back and go, why do we dream?
So it really the answer really depends on the person's frame of reference, right? So I heard an interview with the neuroscientist the other day, and his frame of dreaming was very mind orientated, right? He did pose the question that, well, maybe death is just a big dream, but his answer was that it's neuron firing. We're having a specific mind-based process, right? The psychologist in me would say that it's our inner world comes up when we're dreaming, and we are interacting with that space. And then at the same time, I would say, from my perspective, we dream both with our psyche and we dream with non-physical, right? So the non-physical part of our consciousness, and then the non-physical, I guess, realities that exist outside this one. So that's why I would say that is my answer to why we dream. I don't know if that is what the universally accepted answer is.
Of course, of course. And it is interesting. People are focused more on sleep than ever before. I run workshops, and without a doubt, the most popular part of the workshop is sleep, because people are fatigued. And I'm pretty sure that is, this almost ubiquitous lack of sleep due to devices and just the ability we have to shift our boundaries between day and night. It's causing people distress because they're not getting enough sleep. But probably an area that not many consider is, I'm not getting enough dream sleep, and I'm not spending enough time. I mean, if by nature we're spending 6 or 5 or 3 hours in bed each night just because we are on devices or we're busy or whatever it is, that's going to have implications. I mean, do you think that dreaming is an essential component of our sleep cycle, and of course as part of our well-being? Do you think we need to dream?
Yes, I do think we need to dream. And there is research around it that proves actually that dreaming does help in a lot of processes, right? So it's scientifically backed that if you dream and you work with your dreams, so even if that's basically just recording them, there's a level of like emotional integration that naturally occurs, right? So that's just in a very sort of everyday, you just go to sleep and you fall asleep and dream, and you're not really focused on much else, right? They've also proven that we tend to think that dreams only happen in REM sleep, which is true. That is when the predominance of dreaming happens, but actually dreams can happen at any stage in the sleep cycle. So there's also research that shows that, right? So for me, sleep and dreaming, they go hand in hand. And there's also research that proves that we all dream nightly, even if we don't remember. So the key for me is that sleep hygiene, exactly like what you were saying, right? And why your workshops are so valuable, because if you have poor sleep hygiene, it's very, very hard to get into a frame of mind where your dreams begin to become beneficial, right? And so if you're like scrolling on your devices, or you're watching the news, or you're watching something particularly negative, right, in an emotional capacity before you sleep, that will impact your dreaming. And so that will lead to like greater stress, generally at least a greater stress, people feeling like more tired than when they went to bed, and all sorts of things that don't feel particularly good to experience. So the basic is just getting sleep right, and then once sleep is right, then working with dreams.
So first step, just try and get enough sleep. As you said, that regularity, the timing, all of that kind of stuff, which has become incredibly popular with Andrew Huberman and Professor Matthew Walker, and it's wonderful. I think it's so great that people are starting to pay attention to things like sleep and movement and even positivity. Let's dive a little deeper into sleep, because your book is it's fantastic. I love the cover. It's the link is in the show notes, so everyone please do check it out. But what does lucid dreaming mean?
So a lucid dream is a dream in which your body is sound asleep, but your consciousness is alert and awake, right? So most of the time for people, it happens spontaneously. You find yourself in a dream. You're not aware that you're dreaming, but something out of the norm triggers an awareness that, like, oh, wait, is this a dream? Am I dreaming? And the minute you're asking that question and you recognize, oh, this is a dream, you are in the realm of lucidity. So that's on sort of just a very easy level what lucid dreaming is.
Nice. So I've had this a certain experience, potentially around 10, 15 times in my life where I'm flying and I know I'm dreaming and I go, oh yes, I'm back in this place. I'm going to fly. And it's one of my favorite experiences, I suppose, whether asleep or awake. When do you get the option to do that? Would that be lucid dreaming?
So yes, that I would say that is lucid dreaming, definitely, right? Because you have awareness of the fact that you are dreaming. And it's one of the most exhilarating experiences to feel, flying. They actually, most of the time, there was, again, research done by an author whose name I've forgotten now, but they show that actually most of the time people who are having dreams about flying, when they wake up and they think, oh, I've just had a dream about flying, they're often actually having lucid dreams or out of body experiences, but they're rationalizing them as sort of symbolic dreams of flying. So a good way of recognizing the difference is the resonance, the way you feel, right? It's exactly what you were saying. It's like one of the best experiences. It's really freeing. And until you've actually had the experience, it's quite conceptual, right? It just sounds nice. It's like, oh, that sounds cool. But the actuality of it is really what is amazing.
You mentioned that you had interesting or intense dream experiences. What were some of yours? What really got you interested in this field? Were there recurring dreams, or was it certain types of dreams?
It was definitely lucid dreaming when I was a kid. I had lucid dreams and I would say out of body experiences, but didn't know what to call them. And at the time, my parents were actually very open-minded, but there wasn't a lot of information. I'm an 80s baby, so they kind of were like, oh, well, this is great, but like this is reality. That is kind of maybe not real. It definitely didn't squash it, but it was something that was just seen as oh, okay, that's okay, and through having those experiences, when I hit my 20s, I really wanted to dive in and explore what that was, but to do it more consciously. And so that's how the lucid dreaming came up for me. And then just in terms of sort of regular dreaming, I've always had very vivid dreams in that I can remember my dreams. I'll often remember whilst I'm dreaming, sometimes of even having dreamt of, oh, I'm in this place again. This is what I was doing last time. So like having a memory of a dream in a dream. And so I just think through having personal experiences like that, it really amplified my interest in it. And then obviously through the psychology that I focused on, that's how it came to be.
Excellent. I've had those as well, where I'm in a dream and suddenly I'm back where I was and I can continue that particular thread or that side quest or whatever it is. And what always strikes me is how vivid and how real the people are. So much so that when you wake up, you go, I've just, I was married to that person, or that was like my best friend. You wonder, I mean, in my normal, everyday, conscious, alert mode, I don't have the capacity to dream up such vivid characters with such personalities. And it does make you ask the question, is there more to dreams than just neurons firing and us, reshuffling our database of experience and getting rid of the junk, which I think Professor Matthew Walker said, it's just the reason you see strange stuff is because your brain's getting rid of junk experiences that it doesn't need anymore. I never experienced things like that in my life, so I'm not sure where those visions are coming from. What are your thoughts on that aspect of dreaming?
So I don't think that dreams are just day residue. I don't think they're just neurons firing. I think that lucid dreaming and out of body experiences, which have both been scientifically backed, right? They prove that dreaming isn't just that. And so I always feel like with researchers that over focus on, it's just the emotional regulation of your mind processing memories, experiences, whatever thread it is true that that is one aspect of dreaming, but it's not the only one, right? So for me, it's like it's this and that. Dreams do that. We know that, right? It's the same way in waking life. We're having a conversation now, right? And we're trying to be very mindful about how we're interacting, right? And there's a certain level of alertness and awareness that takes. Then say all of a sudden we finish this podcast and we go and start to make food, or you boil the kettle to make a cup of coffee or whatever it is. It's amazing how your alertness sort of recedes, right? And so just in waking consciousness, we can have different levels of awareness and alertness. To me, it's the same thing with dreaming. If you're scrolling on your phone and you're watching, say, a news story, and then you go to bed, and then all of a sudden you're playing out the same kind of dream. Maybe you're being chased by someone, or you read about some news event that's really frightened you and the same theme pops up. That shows you that on the level of sort of consciousness that you're operating on, you have integrated that information into sleep, because you're not going to sleep consciously. You're going to sleep on autopilot. You're just allowing these events to kind of happen, and then you're falling asleep, and your dreams are reflecting that level of consciousness, right? The minute you change that and you go, okay, I'm going to focus on how I fall asleep. It doesn't take a lot of work to do. And I'm going to start incubating my dreams, and I'm going to start paying attention to them. You start to begin to notice how much your dreams can offer you information that goes beyond day residue, emotional integration, right? And it can also be very inspiring. Like so many ideas for great pieces of art or music or businesses have been received through dreaming, right? And so it doesn't prove that dreams aren't just day residue, but it shows how much more is available to us in terms of connecting with that part of our consciousness. So I don't have the answer as to what exactly it is, but I definitely know through my work and my experiences, right, if that's enough of a backing, that the realm of dreaming is far broader than just day residue. In the same way that in waking life, if you meditate daily and you begin to bring mindful awareness in your daily life, how much that can significantly change almost everything, right? You're still the same person, you're still operating in the same way, but reality shifts, quite fundamentally. So it's a good question. I don't have I don't have a right answer. I don't think there is one.
Yeah. It's so interesting. So you mentioned being more deliberate, or can we cultivate the conditions for better dreams?
I definitely think we can. And that links again to sleep hygiene, right? So some really helpful things, just making sure that you don't scroll on screens, no technology before bed for I say at least 2 hours, which I know for some people it's very difficult to do that. Just I guess for anyone listening, as much time as you can do before bed is the best option, right? A dark room to try and sleep at the same time every night, to be comfortable in your bed, try and have a clean space. There's something about having a clean space that can help with sleep. And so that's just like the very physical things. Then when it comes down to the psychology of it, in a way, it's making sure that the thoughts that you're thinking, just as you're about to fall asleep, are mindful ones. So you can ask your dreaming mind, or whatever word sounds best to you, right? You can literally say, I'd like my dreams tonight to show me the solution to whatever problem you're having. Or if you want creative inspiration, or if you're just feeling a bit sad and you want to feel better, you can incubate that. And most of the time it works, and it begins to work even quicker the more you do this kind of practice, right? So I always tell people, if you try dream incubating one time and it doesn't work, okay, that's pretty standard. It's like going to gym and then thinking you're going to be super fit
Yeah.
because you walked on the treadmill for like 20 minutes. I wish it worked that way. It doesn't. It's kind of the same thing. You are using a part of yourself that you haven't used in a while, and you need to like retrain that muscle.
Fascinating. So you can create the conditions, just basic sleep hygiene. I heard a good tool, which is 3-2-1. 3 hours before bed, stop eating. 2 hours before bed, stop drinking so that you don't have to wake up during the night. And 1 hour
Right.
before bed, stop scrolling. And that's kind of a nice, easy thing for people to remember.
It's a wonderful one, which I will remember now. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. People in workshops, I see them walk out and you see like an empty sheet of paper, but 3-2-1. I've got that one thing. Yeah. And what about lucid dreaming? So is this something that we can try and also create the conditions for? Is it something you could do during the day, or any thoughts?
You definitely can begin to prime your consciousness to experience lucid dreaming more. And so one of the well-known tips is to reality test during the day. So you want to almost like on the hour, just stop and ask yourself, is this a dream? And a helpful practice to do is that if you're standing again next to something solid, like a wall or a table, just to try and push it and see if your hand can go through the wall or table that you're trying to push. Because when you're dreaming, oftentimes you might push a wall and your hand might go through, or all of a sudden the dream scene changes like it usually does, right? But because you've primed your waking mind to recognize that in dreaming, it helps. And so you might go, oh, wait, is this a dream? I'm dreaming. And then it helps you to become lucid.
I like that. So start preparing yourself during the day. It's like anything. If you practice the skills in advance, you'll be able to use them in those situations where it's needed or necessary. And the benefit is that you can actually start to recognize when you're in that dream state and have more fun, those exhilarating experiences.
Also, lucid dreaming has been proven to help people develop proficiency in things. I've had experiences of healing in lucid dreamings. I had a like a lump in my eye that an ophthalmologist told me that I needed to get surgically removed, and that's like my absolute nightmare. And so I incubated a lucid dream, and in my lucid dream, I was given a glass of water that would be healing, and I drank it, and it receded. The lump receded almost completely. Still there just a little bit, but I didn't need the operation, right? So whether that was a placebo effect or if it was the lucid dreaming, the non-physical, what I think is the non-physical part of us, it didn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me because it worked, right? There have been studies done by Harvard that if you're a sports, say like you're a sports player or you're a musician, if you practice in your lucid dreams, there is a direct link to greater proficiency in waking life. So the implications for lucid dreaming are huge. It's really a vast space of exploration. I've also never had a lucid dreaming experience that left me feeling tired. People will often ask me, well, doesn't that make you feel tired to practice? It doesn't. Your body is sleeping. Your body is restoring itself in the way it needs to. It's all that's happening is that your consciousness is awake. Which is what Buddhists have been speaking about for a very long time.
That is interesting. Imagine if we could access that state on demand to accelerate our learning or to find new solutions. That's kind of a new frontier that we haven't really explored deliberately, I suppose.
Right. I would say that there are there's definitely like a very niche group in the world that are hyper interested in this field, and that is actually hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. But generally, most people will never really look to this avenue as an avenue of exploration. And to me, that's really sad, because it is, to me, the frontier. Well, it's the gateway to the frontier of consciousness. It's one step towards it. And I think that what I love about that experience, about lucid dreaming, is that also no one has to take my word for it, right? Or any author's or researcher's word for it, because you can do the practice yourself. It's actually quite easy if you just focus on it, say for like a week or two. People generally have lucid dreams, or at least one. And through the experience of it, you can test it out for yourself. And that, to me, is quite an amazing thing.
It's incredible that it's there. We all have this capacity. Just tap into it and practice. As you said, you're not going to go to bed tonight and just say, I'm lucid dreaming. But with a little bit of practice and that sleep hygiene, you set yourself up to hopefully experience it more. You touched on consciousness. So perhaps we could unpack that. What are your thoughts on the nature of consciousness? And these are big questions, of course, but I know that you have some interesting perspectives.
I mean, it's a huge field, right?
It is.
And again, the lens we look at through it makes a huge difference. My feeling, the more I do this kind of work, is that the non-physical part of our consciousness is so vast and immensely powerful that our waking consciousness actually seems very limited in comparison. And through practices like meditation, mindfulness, lucid dreaming, there are many, many doorways you can begin to explore. People can begin to explore what that means for themselves, right? I realized also for myself after writing my book, I wanted, with the Alchemy of Your Dreams, to offer people a pathway to dreaming that offered both psychology and mysticism, and I united those two groups together in the way that I experience dreaming, and people that I've worked with have experienced dreaming. But when it comes down to the nature of consciousness, I think what I'm more interested in now is actually stepping into work with people or conversation where we not assume, but we are of the belief that non-physical consciousness is real, and then from that space able to then explore. Because I think in the West, and rightfully so, I think it's important to question things. We tend to go, what is consciousness? What is dreaming? And these things are very good questions, and they're very helpful questions. And I am saying that's a great space for researchers and scientists to operate in. I'm interested in taking people who want to experience it firsthand and to answer their own questions to that. So my thing is, I believe that we are more than just our waking consciousness. I feel that lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences proves that. And through that medium and the sort of like, not supernatural, but you can have really strange experiences in the lucid and astral space, right? You can have precognitive experiences. You can see people, like you could go to your uncle's house and view them, and you could say, well, you were lying in bed and you were wearing these pajamas, and that's pretty. And you could phone your uncle and you'd probably find that the answer is actually accurate if you're doing the practices, right? So the minute we're in that frame of like, okay, well, we believe it because we're experiencing it, what does that then mean? And then how does that change the way we view waking reality? So I'm not sure what consciousness is. I'm not sure what the consciousness is when we dream, but I'm definitively interested in the experiential process of it.
It seems that more and more people are starting to seriously ask the question, is consciousness kind of the substrate in our universe, and we are receptors, and perhaps when organisms reach a certain level of sophistication, we're able to tune into it, or maybe it's not even that. Maybe if you're just open enough, you can tune into this. So we're more like receivers of consciousness, which makes so much sense when you consider how vivid these experiences can be when you're not in your, standard alert problem solving state. We can tune into this other layer, and I think it's called panpsychism. I'm not sure, but there's one theory that suggests that consciousness is the fabric of the universe, and our role or our capacity is to tune into it.
Right. How amazing. And I think that in itself, if you're just willing to dance with that parameter, right, to go, okay, let me suspend what I've been taught, that everything is fixed, that it's so linear in cause and effect. And let me just see what that experience would feel like in an embodied way, right? So you're open and receptive to something, like, I don't want to say universally connected, but a greater level of existence than maybe we would say. That fundamentally changes, well, at least for me, it fundamentally changes how I would walk through the world, how I walk through the world, right? So it's a really interesting, I don't know, it's just a very interesting space to be in.
It is. Yeah, it's a fascinating. Oh, and I think it's worthwhile spending a little bit of time contemplating these ideas, because, as you said, it can change how you interact with the world, and it can change if you realize that consciousness is ubiquitous and we're just tapping into it. How does that change our behavior and how we treat each other and so on? We're not these isolated little pinpricks of consciousness. Although I do like Alan Watts, his perspective was we are apertures through which the universe observes itself, and that's also a really beautiful perspective. What are your thoughts on psychedelics as another door to enable us to get to that place, or is that quite different from your perspective?
So I have nothing against psychedelics, right? I feel for a lot of people, and just from the brief reading that I've done around it, I see how psychedelics can open up and lift perception. So if you're clinically depressed or in a severe space of being stuck, it seems like psychedelics are a pathway that can really open up exactly what you were saying, almost like the aperture to being receptive to something so much broader than the mundane feeling experience, right, of being locked in a specific perception, right? So like being clinically depressed, we could just say that's being locked in a specific perception. When it comes to lucidity, I am not against people trying it out. It will lead to, I think, very powerful experiences, right? But for me, lucidity is all about it is about alertness, right? It's about being awake. And it's about recognizing that when you are dreaming, in nighttime dreaming, that you are dreaming. You in that space actually can control everything in the dream space, and you can learn to really master that realm. In almost every single ancient wisdom tradition, they speak about how our reality in a way is dreamlike, and in terms of like waking reality being a dream. So lucidity for me is about being awake. It's about being awake and alert in waking life, and then it's about being awake and alert in dreaming life. And actually, you can even be awake and alert in the passages between sleep and wakefulness, right? That's also been scientifically proven. So if you're taking psychedelics, you're going to have this great experience. You're going to have this lucid experience. It's going to be like, wow, you open up your mind. Like I've taken mushrooms once. It was amazing. And it really was. It was a fundamental experience. I think it was like 23 or something at the time, probably older, 24, 25. And at first I thought my body, like I was dying, and then I felt like I was part of everything. And then it wore off. And I just walked right back into the same consciousness that I had. So, so I think it really depends on the person. It depends on what they're trying to do with it. And then also, is it a long-term strategy? To me, no, it's not. So I wouldn't want people to say, try to become lucid just by doing psychedelics. But I don't have anything against it either.
Yeah, it's a tool in the toolbox that can help
Right,
you remove some filters, perhaps, and get more perspective.
right. That's a
Interesting,
great way of
interesting.
putting it. Mm.
And what are some of the risks to shifting back to dreams again? Obviously, if people are drinking heavily or taking sleeping tablets, this is going to seriously reduce the quality of the dream experience.
So I think drinking definitely does that. It definitely numbs the senses, right? And most of the time, people will just wake up and not remember anything. They don't
Yeah.
remember their dreams. And then a lot of the sleeping tablets that are on offer actually can oftentimes cause really vivid dreams, but most of the time people experience, wouldn't say negative dreams, but quite intense, vivid dreams, right? And
Okay.
obviously, I can't tell you which medication that is, but yeah, they play an impact. They have an impact on your sleep and your dreaming life. I think the question is, um, I had people ask me, should I stop taking sleeping tablets? They really help me. I think again, it's person dependent. If you're really sleep deprived and you're really needing some extra help, then no, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? But notice that it is going to have an impact. And if you're on something like you need sleeping tablets every single night, that is a band-aid. It's not solving why you're not sleeping in the first place. So I would say to that person, like, you really have to root down a little bit deeper and find the root cause of what's happening so that it can change holistically.
I'm sure you have many people who have asked you this question, and it's such a standard question. But do you ever think that the dream world is reality and the real world is a dream?
I think it's a great question, and I think that both realities are real, right? Because if someone came in now and stabbed me with a knife, I would feel that absolutely, right?
Yeah.
We feel our reality in a very sort of concrete way. But I don't think that when we die, that this is the only thing. And I think that reality is probably more real to our true essence, which is non-physical, to me, is non-physical,
Yeah.
non-local awareness. Right?
And do you think that our dreams are in some way connected?
To one another.
Perhaps.
I think that, yes. I think that there's really great dream forums where people will come together and say that they've had dreams of tidal waves before they've hit, and it'll be multiple people all over the world. And I think that shows the connectivity that we as humans have. I think a lot of people like Carl Jung, who was like an eminent psychiatrist, he wrote about like the collective unconsciousness and how that is accessible to all of us, right? And dreams are one pathway. I believe that we are all one, that we can definitely dive into a collective consciousness when we sleep, for sure.
And what are your thoughts about interpreting symbolism and understanding the meaning behind our dreams?
I think it's a very fun and interactive experience to have. I think that your own psyche knows exactly how to show and present a dream to you in a way that will be meaningful. And so I feel like there isn't a symbol that isn't right on time, And I really love unpacking that kind of work with people. I think that's where what I kind of call regular dreaming comes in, but it's not regular. It'll really unpack huge, huge insights into your inner world, into relationship dynamics, into maybe what to do next. And it's all done through symbols and image, which to me is amazing because that's kind of how we experience life, right?
Yeah, very much. So, would you recommend someone keeps a notebook next to the bed and tries to capture the symbols, the learnings, the experiences from their dreams so that they can analyze it later?
Definitely. I think that's one of the most helpful practices to do, especially at the beginning. I have actually a dream journal that I created with penguin. It's called the Deliberate Dreamers Journal. And when I created it, I did it so that it would be very easy for people to reference. So there's like a space for symbols, places, themes, people, and emotions. So even on a basic level, if people just jot down like, oh, brother, car, running, that is really helpful work. I always say for people though who are really into dream work and they know who they are, you'll probably need massive journals.
Yes, yeah, you'll be more tuned into the details, and there'll be more to capture and note. Any thoughts, just at a surface level, dreams where we're running away or being chased? Is that usually, in my own experience, it's during times of high pressure when I'm like, this is all too much, and then without fail, I used to have a lot of war dreams, and I'm fighting in a war, and then I realize that my gun doesn't work, or it's not even, it's shooting bullets and they just drop out. These are obviously signs of just feeling powerless.
Exactly, feeling powerless, feeling chased. Being chased is one of the most common dream themes in the world. And I feel like most of us can empathize with that feeling, right? We all know what it feels like to be chased down. I think having the recognition to go, oh, wait, every time I'm stressed, I have a dream like this. That is so helpful, right? Because you can recognize that actually you need to turn around and face it, right? Because that's what that dream symbol shows us. Like either we are running away, we want to run away. It's like a wish fulfillment, right? We want to run away from the stresses, or we're fearful, right? Maybe it's a group of like militant men running, we're running away from, or water, or whatever it is. And those symbols often give us clues as to what it is that can shift. So sometimes just waking up after a nightmare and going, oh, okay, I was being chased down by these people, and then just playing the dream out, but changing the ending. Okay, I was being chased, but I stopped. And then I turned around and the people just dropped their weapons and they waved at me and everything was friendly and we walked away from one another. That's a good way of like reversing that kind of dream. And so when you do practices like that, what it does is it signals to your psyche, I'm taking the information that you're giving me and I'm going to do something with it. And it also helps to reinstate a feeling of power, right? Even if it's just on a very sort of subconscious level, because you're doing something with that fear. It's not just like, oh, that was so shit, and then all of a sudden I'm into my day, right? So those are kind of helpful things that people can do if they are having nightmares as well.
I didn't even, it's interesting. I never considered them nightmares. I don't know why. I just wake up going, oh, why was the gun not working? Or, not that I even own it. I don't have a gun. New Zealand is not really a place for guns, but, police don't even carry them around here, but it is interesting. Well, really? I did grow up in South Africa. So that might contribute to it. But, there's also other interesting recurring dreams. Well, the one that stands out to me was I'm walking to the octagon for a UFC fight, and I get in there and I'm like, I haven't trained. I really don't know what I'm doing, and there's some assassin across from me who's and you're like, why have I done this, Brad? Why do you put yourself in these situations? And you know what that dream actually did make me ask the question was like, am I pushing myself too far out of my comfort zone? Because I do have a tendency to dive into things and just go, yep, let's do it. Let's make it happen. It's interesting that it gives you a little bit of, I don't know, food for thought or something to just stimulate your thinking in everyday life. And I suppose that's kind of the objective of starting to understand your dreams.
Exactly. And it's that sort of self-awareness and self-recognition that can be so helpful in the long run, right? Because so much of our behavior is caused by unconscious processes.
Yeah.
And so, or very sort of impulsive ones. And I know that for myself, that the minute you can go, oh, wait, let me just reflect on this and see. And then you can still decide whatever you're going to decide, right? You still have the volition to do whatever you want, but you have greater awareness as to why you're doing what you're doing, right? Which is immensely helpful if you're trying to break a pattern.
Yeah, so interesting. Um, can you tell me a little bit about the psychology, spirituality of dreaming? Because for many, it is a very spiritual experience, and we most people, I would imagine, would like more dreams rather than less.
I think so too, at least the people that I speak to.
Mm,
um, I think that so many of the people that I've connected with through podcasts or just generally speaking, like someone will say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'll say, "I do this." And they'll say to me, "I had this dream when my father died and it felt so real. And he came to me and told me something that I needed to know. And I woke up and it felt so real." So many people share
mm,
experiences like that with me, right? And I think skeptics will say, well, that's just really grief, the mind processing grief. And that can be valid and true. And then the spirituality of dreaming will say, well, the lens of, through the lens that we're looking at, it'll say, no, there's really the ability for the non-physical part of that person to be able to connect with you. And actually with sleeping and dreaming, when you sleep, the thinking mind, the ego mind is often more quiet or quieter than it is in waking life, you know.
mhm,
So I think that that's a huge realm that's incorporated into the spirituality of dreaming, also into how we create and how we receive guidance and inspiration that is of like higher consciousness.
mhm.
So again, it just comes down to, I think, how people want to interact with their dreams.
It is interesting, and I haven't thought about this for a while, but my grandmother passed away last year, and I didn't get back in time to see her. I hadn't seen her for 10 years, and she had kind of raised me in a way. And about 2 months afterwards, the most vivid dream, I'm at this house and I'm trying to find a way in. And then I found a way in through this gate, and there she is. And we just spent a wonderful afternoon together. And it's, you just leave feeling like that unresolved thread has been resolved in a way. I also remember
Right.
my grandfather saying to me that if there is a way, I mean, I was only 10, or maybe 9, and he was telling me, so after I die, and I'm like, don't die, you're my favorite person. After I die, if there is a way to come back and connect, I'm going to try and do it. So don't be afraid. And I was going, I mean, he was awesome,
Amazing.
and he has, of course, appeared in dreams, and it's extremely vivid. And you have to question: is it just the brain, neurons firing, trying to create something, or is there another level of reality there that you're tapping into, or is it possible for this spirit world to make contact with us? And that's, I guess, the that other frontier that we're yet to discover.
Right. Right. I mean, firstly, those two experiences sound amazing, even though they are sad. Sorry about that with your grandmother.
Mm,
But what I love to tell people when this kind of comes up, right, or to share, I guess, is that in those dream experiences, because it feels so vivid, right? If it happens again, ask for information, something that you can't know that will come up in the future. Like you can say, on Thursday, next week, Thursday, can you tell me something that will happen? And most of the time, if you can retain that lucidity, you will actually receive that, especially from people who, like parents or loved ones that you loved, because that space is really interesting. And if you receive information, it kind of takes out the doubt, well, at least for me, it does. It's really started to take out the doubt, because I think what also happens is that just by, in a way, just by saying, well, is this possible? Maybe it's just, neurons firing. What it does, at least to me, is it create a doubt in the connection. And so I would have these experiences and go, well, that's so amazing. And it felt so real and it was so vivid. And want to believe that, but didn't. And I operated from that thinking for a very long time. And then I realized actually I could just ask. I could ask for information that would just prove otherwise. And so I do. And it is unbelievable the information that you will receive, right? And again, nobody has to take my word for it. It's just an experiment. You can try it for yourself, you know. So I'm a huge believer of the spirit world. I think we can connect through mediumship, through intuition, through psychic hits, and through dreaming, of course. So it's really just how open and how far people want to go.
Yeah, for sure. My great-grandmother, my grandfather's mum, she was a very famous psychic in South Africa, and apparently even surgeons used to bring her in to help them with operations that they'd never performed before, procedures that they weren't confident. So they would bring her in, and there are pictures that she drew where she's channeling information through. She wasn't like channeling a surgeon from overseas, but just information.
Right.
And walking the surgeon through. I mean, this would never happen nowadays, but there obviously was some respect, and it was acknowledged that there is more to life and experience beyond our just conscious standard operating mode. And people really, this is only 100 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, that people really were welcoming that in to everyday life. Interesting, isn't it?
Right. It's very interesting, and so amazing about her. That's very cool, right? I think also what happens is that in a lot of spaces that are very traditional, because of the kind of stigma that comes with it, you can get in so much trouble for openly saying it. So I think these things happen in actually way more circles than we think. I mean, in traditional spaces, right? But they're just kind of kept quiet because it's easier to deal with it in that way, you know. In my own life, when I studied psychology, I didn't tell anyone really about my alternative beliefs because I didn't want the sort of feedback loop that I thought I was going to get. In hindsight, I actually wish I had given the people around me the opportunity to just be in conversation with me. And I think that's also something valid. Sometimes like we kind of stop ourselves because it's like, oh, so I'm so used to a system working in this way that we cheat one another from being able to connect on a more kind of humane level where we go, oh, I've had this experience or this kind of happened, and being able to sit in the sort of mystery of not having to know everything, not having to know all the answers, but be able to go like, wow, that is quite an experience, you know?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on manifestation? And I know it gets a bad rap, and I've written a blog post about visualization, which is kind of the first step. And we know Michael Phelps, he used visualization to win 28 Olympic medals. So being able to conjure up vivid images of a future event, it can prime us to perform better in those moments. So that's one perspective. But any thoughts from your perspective on manifestation?
I love the idea of manifestation. I think it comes with huge responsibility, which is often kind of overlooked because you really have to really look at everything that you fundamentally feel and believe, both consciously and subconsciously. So in my own life, when I think about the things that I really try to manifest, right? I think, yes, I've done stuff that other people thought would not be possible. And I know that it was a result of me just not accepting, in a way, another option. It's almost just by being stubborn. What I don't think is often said in the conversation, like say with the law of attraction, thinking is just like one part of that equation. You can think very positively and you can visualize, but if there's a huge part of your inner world that is in resistance to that, it will get in the way. And so I think it's a huge realm of exploration. I'm definitely not a master manifester, but I would say that I do try and deliberately create, and I can see when I put the practices that people recommend into place, and when I allow it to be easier, it generally is, which in itself is enough reason for me at least to just keep doing it.
So interesting. So interesting. And if people are looking to explore their boundaries, learn more about dreaming and these related topics, where would you recommend they go? Of course, a great starting point is your book, which is called The Alchemy of Your Dreams, which the link is in the show notes. But where else would you suggest people go?
That's a great question. Thanks for mentioning the book. I love the International Association for the Study of Dreams. They
Okay.
have been around for like 40 years. They're US based and they run a really amazing dream conference every year, once a year. But they also have an online membership and platform where they're literally thousands of people in a group, and they have really been the pioneers in a way in dream research, at least in the US, for quite a long time in terms of it being in a community level. And actually, the story of how they got started was quite amazing because this woman her name was Rita, and I can't remember her surname offhand now, but I'll find it so you can link it if you want, right?
Yeah.
But she was like a biochemist and she was working on some massive project in a lab with a research partner. And I think it was something to do with a defense, something to do with the military. I can't really remember the details exactly. But her lab partner had a dream where he dreamt that there would be this huge fire in the lab, something would go wrong, and she would be burnt to death, right? And he had this dream like over and over and over and over. And he told her, he was like, listen, I keep having this dream. And she just brushed it off. And what he did was he mapped out an exit route so that if that dream came to pass, he would be able to save her. And long story short, that is exactly what happened. And he ended up saving her life. And it really instilled, I guess, like a wow factor for her, and it got her started, and that's how that institution came to be, right? And especially in a time and space where people weren't really talking about those kind of dreams. So they're a really wonderful people to get connected with. For people interested in lucid dreaming who don't want to ascribe it to anything religious or spiritual, then the work by Stephen LaBarge is really good, or Burge. Not sure how to pronounce his surname. He runs a lucidity lab here, and he's also been a lucid dream pioneer and researcher for literally decades. If people are interested in Buddhism and dreaming and lucid dreaming, then they should look at Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche's work, and I will send all these links.
Thank you.
So those are good places.
Those are great places. That is excellent. How can people follow you? Where would you like them to go?
Thank you. The best place to start off with is on my website. I have a lot of freebies there, like some meditations for good sleep and stuff, and that is www.athenalaz.com.
Excellent. Athena, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure unpacking this topic with you. I've learned a lot. I'm sure those who've stuck with us have also appreciated your insights and your knowledge. Any final thoughts for those who've stayed with us all this way?
I guess just listen to your dreams, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, Athena. And thank you all for tuning in. Please do check out the links in the show notes, and we'll see you in the next episode.